A warm welcome to everyone. This module is going to discuss about coding, currency regulations, and types of journey. So to calculate fare calculation, these methodologies are very important, and this module will be covering on why these codings are used and what is the benefits of using these codes. Starting with the first one, there are so many official guides which is used in airline, and we start with the first one, OAG, that is Official Airline Guide. This is nothing but a kind of a manual which gives more information about the global flights and then the data solution companies for passenger aviation, logistics, as well as the travel markets. So this guide is nothing but a kind of a manual which is being published and which gives the information to the buyers and sellers in the airline industry. And it also supplies the corporate travel planning tools and promotes the tourism and transportation products. This is nothing but a data and analytical tool. To put it in a very simpler form, this gives a daily updated version of the flight information and with the origin, the destination, and any change in those structure, the airline codes, and then the aircraft and airline type. All these minute detailings are all covered in this official airline guide. This helps to give an information to the world's leading global distribution system. So global distribution system, I think all of us are very aware, it is nothing but a modified form of central reservation system and the basic components. So this official guide contains the information about these following, which is nothing but air carrier. Air carrier in the sense it indicates the airline that operates a service between the airports, and origin airport, which airport this travel journey is starting from, and the destination point, and the time that is spent in it, the duration. This helps the any passenger as well as any agent as well as the airline to make sure that the exact duration of travel is being mentioned. And ground time. Ground time is nothing but the time which is spent on the ground, including the waiting time, transfer time, especially at the airports. And this also highlights both the seats, number of seats available in a flight, which is normally only known to the concerned airline. Even the travel agents may not be able to know this. So this official airline guide gives even all these information. And the distance covered in miles. So the duration along with the distance covered. So all these aspects helps an agent or an airline to plan the travel itinerary for any passenger. And this is a small clipping about the official airline guide. On the left is an official airline guide published in 1964. So this airline guide is nothing new, which has been existing in a very long run for so many decades. And this gives us a supporting tool for any airline organization to run in a successful manner. On to the right is the kind of the database. The database is nothing but this official airline guide has done so many surveys and analysis, and this graph represents about the daily cargo flights that has departed in Miami International Airport. So the kind of information given it statistically is very perfect and accurate, and this enables future forecasting of all further plans. And following that, there is another guide, which is nothing but Passenger Air Tariff Manual. So this is also similar to official airline guide, but this is very much focused towards the passengers. So official airline guide is something which is more pertaining to the airline as well as any travel organization. But this is a manual which is specifically focused towards the passengers. So passenger air tariff in the sense, this is like kind of a document which is in a kind of an authoritative and very informative. It gives about the rules and regulations and the fare information, and it also gives all this information to the airline agents. And even there are various training institutions which use this PAT. It's normally called as PAT, Passenger Air Tariff Manual. And what does this do? This also gives about the flight sector, similar to official airline guide. This also gives the flight sectors and then the category of fares. What are the different classifications? Special fare, normal fare. We'll be discussing about it later. So all those informations are used in Passenger Air Tariff Manual. And These are the two basic one. And this is a picture about the air tariff manual. So what do? It's a kind of revised. It is not like the same manual. Yearly, it keeps revising. So this sample is here, which is of April 2014. So it's like kind of a book. So in a simpler term, we can call it as some manual. And within that, you have like so much of detailing about the airline functions and fare calculation procedures. Following with that, now let's see about coding. What is called as coding and how is it used in airline? So coding is nothing but giving an identification through a letter, alphabets. Here you have alphanumeric coding also in airline. So in airlines, you have airport code, airline code, city code. So these are the basic three in airline. So why do they give this coding? It's simple, like MIA is a code, MAA is a code. What is the need to give this codes? So initially what happened was when aviation was in the evolutionary stages, they didn't have these kind of coding structure. So people were traveling from one place to another without this coding. But what happened after a period of time, there happened to exist a confusion when two cities share the same name. So when we talk about that, in simpler example, in Tamil Nadu, you have a city called Salem. And you won't believe the same Salem is a place in United States of America. So what happens here, throughout the globe, there could be a chance that the name of a place in one particular country can also be in another country. So this is when they decided that to avoid the confusion, let's create a code. It is like kind of unique identity number. So with that only this coding concept came in airline. So 3-letter code which is given to a particular city can be used only for that city. If it is in India or if it is in the United States, this particular 3-letter code cannot be repeated for any other city. In a simpler term, because when you even compare with Aadhaar number. Aadhaar number is what? It's an identification number which cannot be used for anyone else. So similarly, they started giving these codes. So these 3-letter codes normally talk about the airport, and airlines have 2-letter code. So this is the basic functionality, okay? And here the content goes on with the 3-letter code for airport. And then what do? They give all these in everywhere when you're traveling, even in your luggage also, this coding will be sealed. So in that case, like the baggages can be identified, especially when you have two connecting flights, what happens? This baggage with the 3-letter code, oh, this particular baggage is going to the city of Singapore. So that will even help in terms of baggage claim as well. Okay, and there is also something called as ICAO code. These 3-letter city code and airline code is designated by IATA, but even there are also ICAO code that is less common, which is normally not used in fare calculation. And these ICAO codes are also used to refer the airport that is not even an IATA code. So sometimes there exist some airports which may not have IATA code. In that case, ICAO codes are used. Okay, how is this codes are derived? How, in what terms they give these codes, 3-letter and all that? So I have given few examples down here. So 3 letters, it can be name of the airport city also. In case Miami is the name of the city. So in that case, MIA, the first 3-letter of the city. Denver, the first 3-letter, DEN. Sometimes it can be airport name, it can be city name, it can be airport name also. Chicago Midway International, that is the airport name. So MDW. John F. Kennedy International Airport, JFK. So New York is a city. The city code would be NYC. Whereas the airport, John F. Kennedy International, JFK, that's the airport. So similarly, they started giving. And even in Chennai, now we have Chennai. Previously, we had Madras, so MAA. So like this, the codes were derived based on the convenience factor. It can be the first 3-letter of a word, or it can be a combination of letters within that word also. So here I have given few examples throughout the world. First is Abu Dhabi, UAE, that is the country is United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi, ABI, the first two letters in the last letter. And Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, first three letters. And Ahmedabad in India, AMD, combination of letters. So similarly, throughout the world, we have these three-letter codes, which is mentioned for the city as well as for the airport. And then you have airline code. Airline code, as I told you, that's two-letter. American Airline, A, Continental, CO, first two letters. American is first A and then airline second. So it can be shuffled. There is no fixed structure or a rule there. This is how the code has to be given. So it can be mixer also. It can be combination of the first two or can be cluster of letters within that word also. Okay, that's the airline code. So we have come across airport code, airline code, because these are the basic codes which is used in terms of calculation of fare. And following with that, you have this concept called as minimum connecting time. What is this minimum connecting time? It is nothing but the amount of time that the airport has determined. It's the least amount of time a person can travel from one flight to another flight. In a simpler term, we can say that if you have a connecting flight from Chennai, you're going to Mumbai, and from Mumbai, you're going to Delhi. So what happens here? Sometimes you might go on a single flight. Sometimes you may change the flight also. So in case when we are trying to change from one flight to another flight, that duration in between, we call that as connecting time. Okay. So it is considered as the passenger to make connection between arriving flight and a departing flight. So that's the basic concept behind it. Okay. The time period is chosen based in mind variable aspects, like just not one or two airport layout. Because why is that so? Sometimes one terminal will be in one side and where the people, domestic and international, could be in two different directions. So people have to walk all the way to go to that other terminal. So in that case, what happens? The layout of the airport becomes an influencing factor. And as well as the security features, sometimes you may not be able to come easily. You have to cross through all the security clearances and all that. So even in that case, the connecting time can be varying. It can be increasing also. And sometimes what happens is the connection between the combination of international and domestic. Normally, if it is completely domestic, the connecting time may be less. If it is combination of domestic and international, the combination could be varying. So all these also brings a variation in terms of connecting time. And I have given an example here. What happens is in United States, for domestic flights, the time range for this is approximately 30 minutes to hours, whereas for international connections is 1 to 3 hours. So what happens in case if we happen to miss a flight, okay, if that doesn't come across this minimum connecting time, what happens? The airline will not take liability. The passenger will have to go and make their own arrangement to travel. So why we are insisting here, this as a concept is any passenger should be aware that the minimum connecting time should be carefully understood, and accordingly we need to change the time. Unless and until the airline had a problem in operating the flight on time, there is no compensation or free seat given to any passenger. Okay, that's a concept about this. And then the next one is global indicator. What is this global indicator? It is simply called as a routing, something which gives the direction. It's kind of mapping. Okay, so what happens is this is applied in fare calculation. When you're calculating a fare, this global indicator is used. This helps you to identify which direction the flight is traveling. So that is very important in calculating the fares. So you have various indicators of global indicators. We have Western Hemisphere, Eastern Hemisphere, and AP. AP is Atlantic and Pacific, and AT is between Area 1 and 3. So now there is something called as Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3, which I'll be giving to the next to the global indicator. So PA is nothing but Pacific. So what happens is throughout the world, geographically, there are 3 areas divided. So 3 areas, this is Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3. I'll just show you that. Just give me a second. So this is called as Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3. So what happens here? Why am I bringing this global indicator into this concept is people might travel from one area to another area. From North America, I might travel to Europe. From Europe, I might travel to Asia. So my travel journey can be from area 1 to area 2 or area 2 to area 3, or it can be a combination of these. So in between, we come across all these oceans: Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Arctic Ocean, all these. So what happens when we are calculating the fare? We need to know the global indicator. Am I crossing through the Atlantic? If I'm traveling from New York, that is in North America, to Paris, which is in Europe. So what do I say? From area 1, I'm traveling to area 2. Okay, that's how we should understand. Now, from Paris, I'm coming to India. From area 2 to area 3, the travel is happening. So similarly, while calculating the fare, that is calculated based on these 3 areas. So now, when we're talking about the global indicator, these 3 areas only play a dominant role. So that was the one which I had given in the global indicator. So now I think this should be very clear. Western Hemisphere is in area 1. So I think you are able to remember where is this area 1 coming. That is in North America and South America. So if someone is traveling within American countries, that is Western Hemisphere is the indicator. The indicator is nothing but a routing which is used for calculating the fare. Okay, example is San Francisco to Miami. So if I'm traveling from San Francisco to Miami, I have gone through the indicator of Western Hemisphere. And there is the next example is Eastern Hemisphere, EH, Eastern Hemisphere, between area 2 and area 3. Area 2 is nothing but Europe and African countries. And area 3 is India, Australia, and China. All these comes into area. So now I want you to visualize the map which I had shown before. So then next comes the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean. Between Atlantic and Pacific is AP. So the travel is through these. So then you give the term AP. So why do we use these indicators? Or what is the purpose of using this indicator is, while calculating the fare, these indicator also happens to be an influencing factor in deciding the fare. So that's the reason we use these. Okay, this is concept. So I'm giving you concept separately so that once we get to know all these concepts, it becomes easier for calculating the fare. And the next one is, yes, of course. Now we are talking about the fares and all that. So we need to know the currencies. So without knowing the currency, fare calculation is not possible. So the major important currencies of the world is dollar. So dollar is very dominant. We all know dollar is used not only in the United States, American countries, even in Australia also we have that. So dollar is the most influencing one. And the most expensive currency is pound, that is based in UK. And euro is based in European countries. And India, you have rupees and Switzerland Swiss franc. In Europe, there is a difference that though all the countries are following euro, Switzerland is unique and differentiated from that. You have Swiss franc in Switzerland. And in Chile, you have Chilean peso, and Bahrain, you have Bahrain dinar. So these are all the basic important currencies of the world. So what do we do now? So now we know the currencies. What are the basic regulations? So the currency regulations vary from one country to another country. And they also depend upon the import or export, whether the currency is imported or exported. Based on that, the currency regulation also changes. So there is always a limitation for every passenger, especially when they are traveling from one country to another country. So it means you cannot carry more amount of currency in your hand. Most of the time it is in the form of traveler's check. If the amount is higher than the basic norm, you have to disclose it in the customs, and only then you can take the currency. For what you're carrying the currency, why you're carrying, all these reasons have to be disclosed with the proper supporting document. So that is the basic one. And in case if the foreign currencies are exceeding, so you without declaring what happens, then you will have to face the consequences. Okay. And once you travel to another country, it can be exchanged only through banks or the authorized dealers. You cannot just go and get yourself converted anywhere. And in international travel, what happens is the currency types involved are varying completely. It will be varying when calculating the fare. So what they do a systematic and organized analysis. So first, what you have to do is we have to analyze three basic concepts. One is what are the different currencies used in the world, and then how do you conversion of NUC to other currencies. Here, what is NUC? NUC is a common unit of currency. So since now we saw that there are various currencies throughout the world, you need to know that there is some common unit with which we calculate the fare and then we convert it to the country's currency. So the common unit should be clearly known. That is called as NUC. So conversion of NUC to other currencies. In the sense, while calculating the fare, it is calculated in NUC, that is common unit, and then it is converted to the country's currency. And after calculating, what we do, rounding off. So these are the three major aspects which is to be understood and analyzed when we are doing the currency regulations. So now conversion. How do we convert? The previous one I said we'll have to convert. So how do we convert this neutral unit to other countries' currencies? Is IATA. IATA is nothing but a governing body which is a kind of combination of all the member airlines, and then that is initiated mainly for a safe, economic and properly organized air travel. So what this IATA has done is they establish a term called rate of exchange that is mainly used for converting the common unit of currency to the other country's currency. And this rate of exchange published also keeps varying. It doesn't remain constant. That keeps varying, and based on that, the currencies are converted. So now to convert the common unit of currency to the country's currency. For example, now you want to calculate the fare in Indian currency, that is rupee. So what you have to do, once we calculate in unit of neutral unit, then we multiply with the rate of exchange for India. That will get you the result of value in rupee. Common unit into rate of exchange will result in country's currency. And similarly, now I want to convert this Indian rupee into neutral unit. So what do we do with the rate of exchange? We divide the rate of exchange by the local currency and we get the common unit. So this is the basic procedure. So one is multiplying and another one is dividing. This is simply for converting a neutral unit of currency to the specific country's currency. And after calculating, what do we do? Rounding off. What is this rounding off? It will all be in decimal points, like 3, 4 digits and all that. You have to round it up. So normally while rounding off, this is nothing but the basic mathematical calculation. You will have to have 2 decimal points. After the point, you will have 2 decimal places. So, and you see there's an example here, 412.79844. It will be rounded off to 79.79. So the last 4 digits, you are just rounding off the first 2 digits. And rounding of local currency. So NUC rounding is that, and local currency is the rounding off of each and every country have their own rounding off. Only for NUC, that is common throughout the world. So country to country, what happens? This rounding off also keeps changing. So for that, I can give you the example. So this is the 2 examples which I have given. One is based in India and the other one is in the United States. This is rounding off the local currency. So what happens here? Full adjustment and half adjustment. What do they do? In India, when you are rounding the Indian rupee, you are rounding off to the next higher unit. Okay, that is like, for example, 1232.3. Okay, that is the value. That is the LCF, which is to be rounded off. So 1232 gets rounded off to the next higher 5, not 1, higher 5 in the sense 32 becomes 35. So in India, the rounding off is 5 multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's how it goes on. Another example, 1299.00 becomes 1300. Not plus 5 from that value, but 5 is like 5 in a sense, 35, 40, 45, 50, like that. So that case, 1230.9. Normally when we round it off, we can make it as 1231. But here we cannot make it into 1231. It is 1235. So the higher unit of 5 is rounded off. This is in India. But whereas in US, United States of America, see how the rounding is done. The rounding is done to the nearest unit, which is not similar to full adjustments. So the raw data 1234.39 is just rounded next to the nearest one, 1234. So normally in our basic calculation, mathematical calculation, in our school education, we always have, if it is more than 5, round it up to the next number. If it is less than 5, don't round it off. The same value exists. This is the basic mathematical calculation we have learned in our school. But in terms of IATA-FAR calculation, especially rounding off of the local currency, this varies according to the country. So just the 2 examples are given here for India as well as United States. Similarly, each and every country has their own rounding off. So in USA, 1234.80 becomes 35 and 2299.98 becomes 230. This is something similar to what we have done in our school education. This is rounding off. Okay. So here NUC conversion, repeated NUC conversion, we saw we are converting the NUC value into the local currency by multiplying with the rate of exchange. Okay. And similarly, in vice versa, to convert local currency to NUC, we are dividing it. And rounding off, as I told you, it changes according to the country. So we saw the 2 examples. Okay, this comes under the currency regulations. And the next one, traffic conference area. So this is the map which I have shown you before for global indicator, right? Area 1 and area 2 and area 3. So these 3 areas are called as traffic conference areas. So under area 1, North America, South America comes, area 2, Europe and Africa, and area 3, Asia and Australia and all that. And you have various islands also here and there located, and that will be identified exactly in that area zone. So here, this explanation gives you what are all the countries that come under each area. Okay, you can just have a look at it. So Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia and Southwest Pacific, everything will be coming under this. So exactly based on these traffic conference areas, the fare is calculated with the help of global indicator. So global indicator influence along with the traffic conference area will determine the fare value. Okay, and then the next one, the last topic for this module, we are going with the types of journey. So now we know what are the influencing factors. So from area 1, area 2, you are traveling and all that. So when we are traveling, how do we classify the journeys? So that is called as types of journey. Journey in the sense like we are traveling to one place, coming back. From there you go to another place. So we are categorizing that into 2 basic classification. One-way journey and return journey. One-way journey is what? From this place, you go to another place and you don't come back. That is one way. Where in return, you're going and coming back to the same place. So in that case, return journey, you have 3 another classification. That is round trip, circle trip, and open jump. So now we'll be discussing about these in detail. So going with the one-way journey, I think I've told you, from Delhi, I'm traveling to Singapore, right? So what happens if I travel from Delhi to Singapore and then I get a job there and then I stay there, I don't come back to India, that becomes one-way journey. Or maybe after a year or 2 years, I might come back, but the type of journey covers only one way and you don't come back. Okay, and the origin and destination are different. There is another example, Johannesburg in South Africa, you travel to Nairobi and then you go to Cairo. Okay, so one way can have just 2 places or it can have more than 2 places also. Okay, that's one way. Round trip. So as I told you, return trip has got 3 classifications. Round trip, circle trip, and open jump. So the first classification is round trip. What is round trip? You travel from one place to another place, again you come back. Here Delhi, we're starting from Delhi. The star which is mentioned above Delhi says that it is origin. So from Delhi, you're traveling to Singapore. From Singapore, again you're coming back to Delhi. So this journey can be called as outbound and inbound. Okay. The travel from Delhi to Singapore is called as outbound and from Singapore to Delhi is called as inbound. These are the technical terms which is used in terms of fare calculation. Okay, and then this is round trip. Round trip can have only two fare components. Two fare components in the sense Delhi to Singapore one component, and then Singapore to Delhi another component. So origin to destination is called as component, fare component. So in that case, round trip can have only two fare components. Whereas when you're talking about circle trip, you go from one place, you go to another place, but again you come back, but you have more than two fare component. So here in this example, how many you have? Delhi to Singapore, one component. Singapore to Kuala Lumpur, another component. Again, Kuala Lumpur to Delhi, another component. You have three fare components mentioned here. Whereas previous one, only two fare components. So more than two fare components and you return back to the same place, that is called as circle trip. So difference between round trip and circle trip is more than two fare components will be there. But otherwise, you start from an origin, again you come back to the same place. So that is the similarity in circle trip. Okay. And the next one is open jaw. What is open jaw? Open jaw is nothing but when we open our jaw, what happens? You have like V shape from our jaw. So from top, the jaw goes down and then it comes. So it will be like a V. What happens? One side it will be open. In the sense, in an air travel, if all the sectors are through air except one sector, that is called as surface travel. Surface in the sense, it can be through water, it can be through road, or it can be through rail also. So these are called as surface travel, which is not an air. So in an air travel, any one particular sector or any particular travel point does not involve air travel. That is called as surface travel, which is nothing but open jaw. Right? That is the basic concept. So here again we have three categories: origin open jaw, turnaround open jaw, and double open jaw. So now what are these three classifications? So these are the pictures which I have given you. Now I have told you what is surface travel. Here in this diagram it is mentioned as surface. Surface is the travel is not on air. So in the first one, origin open jaw. Origin point is Delhi. From Delhi, you are starting and you're going to Singapore. From Singapore, you are going to Mumbai. Again, you're finally reaching back to Delhi. So what happens here? The surface travel is on Bombay to Delhi. I mean Mumbai to Delhi. So from initially when you're starting from Delhi, you go by flight to Singapore. From Singapore to Mumbai, you come by flight. And then what happened? From Mumbai, you go to Delhi by train. That's an example. So this is called as origin open jaw. The origin point has got a surface travel that is called as origin open jaw. And what is this turnaround open jaw? This surface travel, if it is not in origin point, if it is anywhere in between, intermediate, which is in the middle of the journey, then that is called as turnaround open jaw. Because if the travel, surface travel is from Delhi to Kuala Lumpur or Delhi to Singapore in a second image, then you call as origin open jaw. But now what happens? From Delhi, you are going to Kuala Lumpur by air. From Kuala Lumpur to Singapore. What happens? Kuala Lumpur is in Malaysia. Malaysia and Singapore are quite close to each other. So what happens? The passenger decides, let me go on a cruise. So from Kuala Lumpur, the passenger travels to Singapore through cruise, through boat, through water. So then what happens? From Singapore again, the passenger is coming back to Delhi by flight. That is turnaround. So any surface travel which is happening in the middle of the travel, that is called as turnaround. Whereas double open jaw, that is nothing but combination of both origin open jaw and turnaround open jaw. So the surface travel will be on both. Okay. So these are the classification of journeys. And this also helps in deciding the airfares. So now this entire module, what we were discussing on, we were looking into the code. So now even in this image, you can see PEL is a code. So every time whenever the fare is calculated, the codes are mandatory. So the coding is understood, why the codings are used, and then what are the official guidelines are there, PAT and OAG, they are the official guides. And then to calculate the fare, you need to know the currencies, different currencies of the world, and how do you convert that, the regulations involved in currencies. And then we have come across this types of charging. So I hope this module is very useful. Thank you all.